passage in Paradise Lost where the demons are building pandemonium under Mammon's sort of guidance, and they crack open what's not really earth but hell, and they take out the gold, and they build pandemonium, which is the most sophisticated architectural wonder of all time in Milton's language. And this conception of taking material and turning it into a temple to oneself was interpreted by Humphrey Jennings, who was the founder of the mass observation movement. If anyone saw the opening to the Britain's 2012 games, the history of the Industrial Revolution, he said, was encapsulated by this passage in Milton, where you have demons building a temple for themselves out of matter, and that mankind, in Milton's language, was taught to do this, or they learned it first by this example. And he says, "Let none envy that devils have riches in hell." And I see things in this. One, the Gnostic idea that somehow the world itself that we inhabit is hell, and that matter is not our true place of existence, but somewhere sort of Platonic. And also the Faustian sort of bargain that people made around 1666 to get a world of stuff and things and possessions by losing soul, or what existed before that. And I wonder if I play with that a lot in my own thought, and I wonder if that's something that you found in Milton, and what you think of that passage in particular.
Well, Milton was definitely a prophetic voice, right? And I think that's a perfectly reasonable retelling of that section. It's also very much akin to the story of the Tower of Babel, which we'll talk about next week. See, the problem, God, it's so complicated. See, one of the things that Jung said about the transformation of the first millennium of Christianity into, let's say, the second millennium of Christianity was that Christianity had promised something like redemption, universal redemption from suffering, maybe in the afterlife, but that was kind of a cop-out, let's say, because it didn't really solve the problem of suffering here and now. And Jung believed that as people had, although it did many positive things. Let's not forget that. It civilized people in a way that they hadn't been before, or you could make that case. But then there's this underground, at the same time there's this denial of the utility of material reality that went along with the spiritualization of mankind in that Christian millennium. There was value left in material because it had been ignored. And so then Jung believed that the collective unconscious, broadly speaking, began to be attracted to what had been rejected by the hyper-spiritualization, and started to question whether or not additional value could be extracted from the material, maybe as an adjunct to the spiritual, because maybe true redemption was something like a proper meeting of the spiritual and the material, which wasn't something that seemed to be part and parcel of Christian doctrine up to that point. Now, maybe what Milton was warning against was a swing too far, right? And I think Milton's point is well taken, because one of the things that's worth noting is that you can be perfectly miserable in a house of gold, right? I mean, I've known very many wealthy people, very, very wealthy people. And the problem, see, the thing is that money just doesn't solve that many problems that people have. People wish it would. People who want to be rich think it will, and the people who want to redistribute money think it will. And I know that there's nothing to be said for abject poverty, but the problem is that there are many serious problems that human beings have that material comfort alone does nothing to address, or almost nothing. You can have a perfectly miserable family life and $20 million. And the buffer that the $20 million puts between you and the misery sometimes it's not even a buffer, it's a magnifier. So Milton would warn against the creation of even the idea of a material utopia, even in principle, something Dostoevsky also recognized as an error. You cannot solve the problem in that manner. And maybe the demonic idea is propaganda that you could. Now, maybe there is a balance of some sort, because I don't understand. If we were going to build the city of God, let's say, well, a huge part of the endeavor would have to be spiritual. And to me, a huge part of that would be, it would have to be something predicated, if not on truth, at least on the willingness of people not to lie to one another. Without that, all the material well-being in the world it's a facade. It's like gilding a corpse, right? And I think that's partly what Milton was warning against. I mean, Milton was doing many more things than he knew, of course, because he was a poetic genius of incalculable genius.